It's my pleasure today to introduce to you Gabe Gabrielle. He is an engineer that I met actually when I was on site delivering a class last week at NASA. And he has an incredible personality and a great background. He's a former director of engineering for the U.S. Air Force Special Operations Command. He's been working, I think, volunteering 10 years with Kennedy Space Center's Disability Awareness and Action Working Group. He's been a disability mentor, working as a mentor on Disability Day through the Kennedy Space Center. He's been doing that for quite a few years. He's also a triathlete, and he's going to share with you a story about this too a little bit later. But he's a triathlete, and he's also helped another fellow triathlete who is blind and actually go through a race and swimming and biking and running together, which is incredible, and training. So it's just a lot of great stories that I got from Gabe on this. So, like I said, it's my pleasure to bring him to this audience, and would like for him to share with you a bit about what Kennedy Space Center is, what they do there, and what he does as a mentor. So, over to you, Gabe.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm not sure if I can get feedback from you when I talk to you, so I'm just going to kind of talk, and Mark can jump in if we need to add something, but I'll just try to talk and flip through some slides. As Mark said, I really am fortunate to work at Kennedy Space Center. It's a magical place. Fortunate to be here for a majority of the launches, and I went to all the launches. And I developed a program where I go out to schools and I talk to kids in schools basically about dreams and goals and having fun with life. And I use the space program to get their attention, and then while I'm talking to them about the space program, I try to relate it to the day-to-day activities that they may have and how astronauts train, and to try to get them to understand that, you know, they can do anything they want, and basically they just have goals. What I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to try to give you the presentation that I do to the kids. I actually do this from K through junior college, so I'm going to interject different things a little bit differently. Normally we show some movies, but I believe some of you have seen the movies ahead of time, so I might reference if you saw the movie or if you didn't. Otherwise, I'll just flip through the slides, kind of talk to you a little bit about what I talk to the kids as I show each slide, and also what I try to do to become a mentor for them throughout the course of the year. So this is the first slide. It just shows me at Kennedy Space Center. That's actually a picture of me in South Africa. It's at a place called Table Mountain in Cape Town. And I've been fortunate enough to go to South Africa 4 times to do presentations to the schools. And the last time I went, I was there for 5 days, and I spoke to over 5,000 kids. So it was a great experience. Most of them were high school, and it just worked out real well. I know there's a little bit of a time delay between the slides, so I'm going to take a couple of seconds. Maybe Mark, you can monitor if I'm staying with the slides.
You're great.
Okay, so this is the second slide. It just shows the shuttle on a launch pad. It's just a beautiful sight, early morning launch. This is a great picture. It shows the shuttle on the launch pad for a night launch, and actually that's the moon in the background. And when the countdown started, the moon was on the horizon. It was a big orange ball. It almost looked like the sun. And as it rose, it changed colors, and at launch time, it was beautiful as the launch went right in front of it. This is an extremely rare picture. Normally we have the shuttle, and the only reason we really had the shuttle was to build the International Space Station. It was the only thing large enough and powerful enough to take pieces up to the space station. We also have the Hubble telescope that was brought up and put in orbit by the shuttle. And this was actually a repair mission to the Hubble telescope. Now normally when the astronauts go to the space station, if there's a problem while they're in space, they can just go in the space station until the problem is fixed, and then they'll come back. However, going to the Hubble, they didn't have that option. So they had a second orbiter on the pad just as a rest was necessary. So this was the only time this picture was ever taken, the only time they had 2 shuttles on the pad. So I like to show it. For the night launches and during the process of countdown to launches, the orbiters or shuttles are lit up for miles around. This is just a night picture of the same picture you just saw. See how brilliantly they're lit up. This is actually the last mission for Discovery, going out to the launch pad. This is how it looks. This is a real picture. It's actually brilliantly lit up. You see all these colors. That's the shuttle on what's called the mobile launch platform, and underneath is called a crawler transporter. This whole thing is assembled in the vehicle assembly building and then brought out to the launch pad. You can actually see the launch pad in the background. It's kind of in the middle of the screen. That's about 3.5 miles away, and it takes about 6 hours to get there. It goes about 1 mile an hour, but it stops periodically to make sure everything is going well. This is what it looks like at liftoff. There's 2 solid rocket motor boosters on either side of the tank. Inside the tank is liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen, and there's 3 big engines in the orbiter. So the part that looks like a plane, we call that an orbiter. The whole assembly is actually called the shuttle, but most everybody refers to the orbiter as the shuttle. And the reason for that is shuttles back and forth to the space station bringing out pieces. So this delivers about 6 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. I don't usually show this next couple of slides to the kids, but this gives you an idea. In the pit below the launch, and I think some of you may have seen the launch, you see the cloud of smoke. Well, actually, that's actually steam. They dump about 1 million gallons of water into the pit to sound suppression and for heat suppression. But this is one of the more powerful liftoffs, and it actually blew the concrete off the wall. Just to give you an idea how large the pit is, you can see this heavy equipment down in that same pit, how small it looks compared to the pit. This is a really cool picture. I actually tell the kids it's breaking the sound barrier, but it's not, but I let them think it is. But actually, to give you an idea, I talk about the sonic boom when it goes through the sound barrier. And to give you an idea of how fast the shuttle is going when it goes into orbit, if you fire a rifle bullet goes about 2,000 miles an hour. When the shuttle is going in orbit, it's actually going 18,000 miles an hour. So if you're in that, you're going 9 times faster than a rifle bullet, which is kind of amazing for something that large. This is a tank. It's actually manufactured in New Orleans. It's so large, the only way it can be brought to the Space Center is in a barge. Everything comes into the vehicle assembly building horizontally. This is the tank inside the vehicle assembly building. And what happens in the vehicle assembly building, everything is lifted up to the top of the VAB, which is almost 600 foot high, and then slid down into a stacking area. This is the tank. It's got some ties on it. It's lifted up. It's put down in the stacking area. The solid rocket motor boosters, you can see them on either side. They're already in the stacking area. They actually come in 5 segments, and they're stacked. And then the tank is slid down in a circle between them. This is the orbiter processing facility. Remember, the part that looks like a plane is called an orbiter. After every mission, it's brought back completely disassembled and reassembled. One of the things that I try to do, and is so important for me, is to try to get girls interested in math and science, basically to let them know that they can do well in math and science. A lot of times, girls are told, you know, you can't do well in math and science, it's only for the boys. So I always have this slide, and I always talk to the girls in the audience, and I try to single them out and tell them, look, you can do anything you want to do, especially if you want to be an engineer. This woman, she's actually putting the engine into the back of the orbiter. The tolerance is so small, she didn't do it correctly, she could damage the orbiter or damage the engine. Millions of dollars worth of damage, and it could delay the mission. But she's very well explained to the girls that, you know, women now, they fly the orbiter, they maintain it, they navigate it, integral part of the Space Center, space program. So I try to keep their interest and let them know it's okay. Now this is the orbiter. It's actually brought in horizontal and it's lifted up vertically. You can see the straps and a huge crane that's used to lift it up. Again, this goes up almost 600 foot high. And then it's slid back into the stacking area where the 2 solid rocket motor boosters and the tanks are already in place. Again, just showing it being slid down. And this is completely in place against the tank with the boosters, and there's shelves that slide around it so the workers can work at making all the connections. This is when it's completely ready to go out to the launch pad. Everything is slid away. Everything is hooked up. This is called the Space Station Processing Facility. Inside the SSPF, that's where all of the parts of the space station were laid out. And they were laid out in a chronological order in the way they were sent to space. And before anything was sent into space, it was checked out and rechecked to make sure that when it got into space, it worked. That canister in the background with the NASA emblem on it, these things were loaded in that canister and they were transported out to the launch pad. Most people think that the stuff was put in the orbiter before it went out, but actually the cargo was put into this canister and taken out to the launch pad. This is how it looks in the canister. You can see these guys are in what's called bunny suits. Everything has to be sterile and maintained in a sterile environment. This is coming out of the SSPF, Space Station Processing Facility. That's on the way to launch pad. It's passing the VAB where the shuttle is inside getting assembled. That's how it gets self-propelled. It goes out to the launch pad. Then it's lifted up and stacked in the launch pad. This is the shuttle ready to come out, go to the pad. And that's how it goes out. And you can see there's a road that parallels what's called the crawlerway. And it's great working out here because you used to be able to drive out on that road and be right beside it when I went out to the launch pad. I race cars for hobby. I don't think I told Martin that, but that's one of the things that I do. And I used to take my race cars out there and take some pictures of the car with the orbiter passing behind it. Great picture. This gives you an idea how large it is. That's one of the tracks on the crawler. There's actually 4 of those. That's kind of neat when it goes out. It's a large procession with a lot of vehicles, a lot of people all around it. Again, it'll go a certain distance, stop, and they'll check everything and then continue on. This is how it looks from the launch pad looking down. And this is ready to go. This was me. I was fortunate enough to be able to tour inside the orbiter. And again, I had to dress up in one of these bunny suits. This is actually on the flight deck. They have a flight deck where there's 3 astronauts, a big deck where there's 4 astronauts, and then the cargo bay. So normally when the shuttle would launch, there would be 7 astronauts on it. This is the International Space Station, and this is the reason that we actually had the shuttle, was to build the International Space Station. It took about 12 years to build. This was about 3 years into construction. This is about 3 years before construction ended. And this is how it looks now. It's complete. There's actually a link, and you can just go to the NASA.gov website, or I may have given it some Martin. It will tell you exactly what time it comes over your area. You can walk outside and you can see it. It looks just like a star going across the horizon. You don't need binoculars. You can see it with the naked eye. It's pretty cool. I always like to talk to the kids about training and doing well in school. And I tell them that the astronauts, for a year before they go into space, they have to train. And there's no way to duplicate zero gravity on Earth. So what NASA decided to do was have the astronauts train in water for the flotation device. But if we go in water, we'll float. And I try to ask the kids the difference between buoyancy and neutral buoyancy. What we try to do is create a neutral buoyancy environment. That's where you don't float and you don't sink. So as a person, you would float. So NASA puts a weight belt to counteract the floating ability, so they would stay right in the middle of this pool. This pool is about 200 foot wide by 100 foot long and 40 foot deep. It's in Houston. It's called the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory. And in the pool, all of the pieces of the space station, exactly what the astronauts are going to work on that particular mission, are duplicated. And they're held in the middle of the pool, either by prop-ups. You can see the prop-ups where it's resting on, or flotation devices, which are essentially balloons. One thing I talk to the kids about is you don't realize that it's so difficult to do something when you're floating around. I build cars, and if I want to drill something, I just use my body weight and I put it in the drill, and that's what allows me to put this whatever I'm doing into whatever I'm doing. Here, when you push on something and you're floating around, it kind of pushes against you. So something as simple as putting a screw into a wall with a drill becomes much more complicated in space. And the astronauts had to do this while floating around, traveling 18,000 miles an hour, and experience a new day every 90 minutes. And also they would go from 200 degrees Celsius to minus 200 degrees Celsius in their 90 minutes. I always talk about how important it is to the kids to learn to work together as a team, that it's so important. Everything we do in life, we have to count on the person next to us. And we're only as good as the people next to us. And true leaders, and I know you guys talk about leadership, to me, a true leader elevates the people around them. And they do that by encouraging them and supporting them and allowing them to attain a level they probably wouldn't do on their own without your encouragement. But with astronauts, everything they do is like dependable. So it's important they learn to work as a team. Martin mentioned that I'm a sighted guide for triathlete who's blind. This is my buddy Randall, and I try to talk about people first language. I always say a triathlete who's blind, not a blind triathlete. So whenever you think about a person, always say the person, some person who's in a wheelchair or whatever, but always say the person first. And another term, I deal a lot with kids with disabilities, and one of the kids told me he's not disabled, he's differently abled. So if you hear the term disabled, try to mentally think differently abled, because kids with disabilities, given a chance, they can do anything, they just do it differently. But for those of you who are still interested or are listening, when we do triathlons, triathlon is swimming, biking, and running. Normally it's about a half-mile swim, about a 20-mile bike ride, and a 5K or a 3.1-mile run. And what we do is we attach ourselves with a bungee cord, about a 15-foot bungee cord. And when we swim, I have to guide him. I can't pull him. You know, we have to swim together, and everything about doing these triathlons is about being a team. And I always talk to the kids about being a team. So when we swim, we have about a 15-foot bungee. Now, if you've ever competed in a swimming event, it is mass chaos. People will swim over you. They will kick you. They don't look. They're just swimming as fast as they can. And so they don't know he's blind. They don't know we're attached. So often, you know, we get kicked or we get run over. We don't swim very well compared to the others. So it's our weakest point. But it was very important for us to learn to swim as a team. If I pull him, I'll be dead in no time at all. And if he gets ahead of me, well, I'm in big trouble because he's leading us where we can't go. So we have to stay together. Then we go on a bike, a tandem bike, and it's important for us to pedal together so we don't fight each other. And then we run a 5K, which with about a 20-inch tether. So that's part of working as a team, and that's what I try to get the kids to talk about. The next, there's a little picture of a Mars rover. These rovers were sent to Mars about 6 years ago to look for water, and they did find water, and they actually precluded the Mars rover that went up last month called Curiosity. But I always talk to these kids about these rovers because they went up there to look for water, and once they found water, essentially that allowed the program to go further. And I try to talk to the kids about dreams and goals. It's so important to have dreams and goals. When you're mentoring the kids, and if you can talk to them about having goals and to write them down, that it's proven that 70% of people who write their goals down achieve them. And when I talk to kids about that, I always talk about writing them in pencil because you may change them 100 times. But as long as you have to work towards something, you can achieve it. It's very difficult to do something when you don't know what it is. So it's very important to write it down and have, this is what I want to do, then how do I get there? And in the course of getting there, they may find out something they prefer to do. But it's very important to have those goals. I go to a lot of schools and I write to a lot of schools, and one school I was writing to was in South Africa, and I didn't even know it. I was writing to the school for about 3 months before I realized it was in South Africa, and it was a group of third graders, and they were very interested in America and coming to the States, and I always talk to kids about dreams and goals, and I always tell them that no dream can come true unless you dream it. So I kind of have a picture of me in a NASA, it looks like a NASA shirt with a South African hat, but actually it's got the name of a school. It says Laker School, Anton von Weil on the bottom of it. Top of it, and the bottom says live your dream. So there's 55 third graders in South Africa. They determined their dream was going to be to come to America. So the girls went out and did fashion shows, and the boys did car washes, and they raised the money. They got the local community. They came to the States for 2 weeks, and they stayed here in Orlando, and they got to do all the touristy things. And at the end of the time, I spent that time with them. They said, hey, Gabe, you know, we came to America now. You have to come to Africa. And I kept thinking, well, why would I go to Africa? It's so far away. What would I do when I got there? But eventually they convinced me to go. And I talked to the kids that in the process of doing that, I got to live a dream of mine that I never thought would ever happen. But I want them to know to never give up on your dreams because they can happen at any time possible. So the next picture shows me in South Africa. At a school, South Africa is very segregated. Some schools are white and some are black. They're just integrating. But it shows me at a auditorium talking to about 800 kids. And one of the things I like to show this picture because I'm actually sitting down at their level. Whenever I talk to kids, I always tell them my name is Gabe. That's what my friends call me, and that's what I want you to call me. I want them to feel comfortable around me. I don't want them to think I'm something above them or something that they could never attain. I really want them to understand that I relate to them. They can't relate to me. So when you're mentoring, if you're mentoring someone who's 20 or someone who's 15, you've got to think that way and look through their eyes so that you can understand them and they can understand you. They'll never understand you with your life experiences at that point in your life. I show some signs that the kids made, all kinds of signs at the classrooms. And then I kind of show a picture of me riding an elephant, which was really cool. I had an opportunity to go on an elephant safari. And then one of the last pictures I show is me feeding a little lion. I got to play with 4 baby lions, actually 4 little cubs. But they were between 2 and 4 months old. They were about 60 pounds, and they were almost as big as a large dog. And just playing with those lions, that was a dream of mine, to always play with the lions. So I got to do that. So I talked to the kids about never giving up on your dreams. The last picture I show is actually of the current Mars rover, Curiosity. And I don't know if you have an opportunity, maybe somewhere in the process we can figure out how to do this. But if you go to the website and you look for Curiosity, one of the things I want you to kind of notice on this particular picture is some slots in one of the wheels. And one of those slots is actually Morse code for JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. So the guys that built this rover, they were pretty creative. They were told they couldn't advertise it anywhere, that it was strictly an experimental mission and it was for determining what was going on Mars. So what they did in one of the wheels, they cut out in Morse code JPL. So wherever this thing goes around Mars, it leaves a JPL emblem. So I think it's kind of a shame we didn't get to see the rest of it, but I wanted to make sure that we finished it up, and then I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
All right, everybody. Feel free to ask a question. Either type it in, and I'll read it out to Gabe, or go ahead and pick up the mic. I do have a comment in here from one of the colleagues. The software for the original drives the development of the first version of ConstructSim that Bentley eventually purchased. ConstructSim, Gabe, is one of the products that we have. Also, a few of you have probably seen in the news about them shipping the orbiter over to Los Angeles. I'm not sure exactly where, but I know that's been in the headlines quite a bit lately. All right. Feel free to get a question from one colleague. Gabe, how did you get involved with mentoring through your work programs? Where did it start?
Actually, I got involved because a very good friend of mine's son, upstate New York, was on a snowmobile, and he flew over the top of it, and he was paralyzed worse than Christopher Reeve from the neck down. And I was trying to find out if there was anything I could do to help him, and I got involved with this Disability Awareness and Action Working Group, which is a group on Kennedy Space Center comprised of people with and without disabilities, and we look at obstacles in the work environment to try to help get people who are in wheelchairs or whatever disability they may have to improve their work environment. And as part of that, actually October is National Disability Awareness Month, and as part of that National Disability Awareness Month is Disability Mentoring Day, where kids from the local high schools with disabilities come out in a job shadowing mode. And I got involved with that, and once I got involved with it, I saw how amazing these kids are, that in spite of whatever we think they may not be able to do, they can. And so I just got more and more involved supporting the kids and getting in programs that help support them to have a better life.
Wow, that's an impressive story. Not your typical one. So the feedback was, so being a mentor inspired you, basically. Yeah. All right. Other questions, everybody? Gabe's got plenty of answers for all your questions, I'm sure. And since we had a little technical difficulty, normally I'm a stickler about ending on the half hour, but we'll have a grace period here. I won't end just yet, so you can hang around and listen. So hang tight, everybody. We may be able to see a few of the photos towards the end of the presentation.
Gabe, are you still with NASA, and how's your role changed now that they stopped the orbiter projects?
Yes, actually, I'm still with NASA. I work as a contractor for a company called URS, United Research Services, and our role really is, I'm not really directly related with the space program. My job is more with the facilities and the infrastructure. So actually we've gotten busier because we're in the process of trying to turn the Space Center into a more commercial-orientated environment. So we're going back to all of the existing facilities and trying to get them ready to possibly rent out to commercial enterprises. So we're actually very busy. A lot of people were let go when the shuttle stopped flying.
Gabe, are they still using the runway to test race cars?
I'm sorry?
Are they still using the runway to test race cars?
No. They do that if someone wants to rent it and do that, they will. Okay, well, this is the Mars rover. This is the one, this is called Spirit. There was actually two of them. One was called Spirit and one was called Opportunity. They were sent to Mars about 6 years ago to look for water with a life expectancy of 90 days. And they're actually still working after 6 years. It's kind of interesting. You can see there are solar panels that take energy from the sun, and that's what powers them. And they had a big sandstorm that came through and covered up that. And then it stopped running, and they didn't think it would work anymore. And then a windstorm came through and blew it off, and it started functioning again. And actually now one of them is still going around Mars, and one of them, after 6 years, one of the wheels got stuck, and they got off in some deep sand, and it stuck. So it's a stationary laboratory now. This was the shirt I was talking about. This is the kids. The kids made this shirt when they came to America. When I actually went there, it was amazing. Everywhere I went, there were kids lining the ways, and they often had South African flags that I walked through. This was in the auditorium talking to 800 kids. It was amazing because actually, you know, I just consider myself an average guy when working in a good place, and when I went there, the kids were just amazing. I'd never done a school presentation in my life. This was the first time I'd ever done one. And actually, I walked out, the U.S. Embassy found out that I was there and thought I was some kind of NASA person. So they set up a presentation where I addressed 20 high schools with 20 kids from each school, 400 students, all of the embassy staff, all the science teachers, and all of the principals. And I walked out and I had to do a presentation that I'd never done in my life. And I did not consider myself a public speaker at the time. So those of you that have to get up and go brief or do briefings and you've never did it or the first time, you can imagine what that was like. But actually things were happening so fast that I didn't have a chance to think about it. But what happened was it went perfectly. They had taped it and it went perfectly. And after I did that, I realized that I can do this at schools, and it started me doing it in schools. I also send out a group email that Martin gets, and if any of you are interested in getting it, it goes out 2 or 3 times a week on the space program and updates of what's going on here. I send a lot of stuff to schools. I sent so much stuff to this one school that they actually built a room where they just studied space in it. This was at one of the black high schools. This was addressing a large number of kids. What I tell the kids, and one of my favorite things to do is hang out with the kids. When I go to schools, sometimes I try to go to the individual classrooms and spend time with them one-on-one so I can just talk to them, you know, as somebody who's not up on a stage. This is the little elephant I was talking about. This elephant was about 4 months old. It followed you all around. It was like a little puppy. This was pretty cool. Riding an elephant is quite an experience. They're really fast, and they're a lot bigger than you think. When you get up on top of one, it's a lot different than seeing it in a movie. This is the little lion I got to play with, and I don't know if you can see it. I'm feeding it a bottle, and its paws are just as big as my hands, and they're just like little kittens. They're purr. They're very playful. When they grab you and bite you, they bite you, and believe me, you cannot get away from them. And I was playing with 4 of them rolling around the ground. I do this with my cats at home, and I tried it with the lion, and I just had a little bit of fun doing it. And this is the Mars rover. Now, if you look on the left of your screen, you can see the holes in the wheel that say Morse code for Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So I'm glad you got to see the rest of it. If there's any questions, I'm not sure what the time frame is like, but I'll be glad to take any questions or here, Martin.
All right. So for those of you who had said, or Gabe had said, there's that newsletter that he sends out, just email me and I'll get it all, collect everybody's emails and send it to Gabe. And he sends out some really neat stuff. All right, questions for Gabe? Anybody? Pick up a mic, ask him a question. Gabe, I don't know if you can see the text part, but you got quite a few thank yous and great presentation in there somewhere too. So, okay. And how did those the photos that you had on the rover? That was a collage, wasn't it? It was a collage of photos put together.
Yes, that was actually taken by one of the rover's cameras, and it was 9 pictures that were lumped together to show the underneath of it.
Gabe, how long did it take Curiosity to get there? When launched from Kennedy to arrival at Mars, what was the time span?
Yeah, very good question. It actually took 8 months to get there, and something I talked to the kids about, and I'll mention to you guys, is that you have to think about the Earth. Both the Earth and Mars are revolving around the Sun, and both of them are rotating. And the Earth is rotating about 1,000 miles an hour. So you've got the Earth rotating about 1,000 miles an hour. You've got Mars rotating. You've got both of them rotating in different orbits around the Sun. And it took 8 months. It's 300 million miles from where it took off to where it landed. So you can imagine the complexity of trying to make that happen. And it happened perfectly. So it's amazing that the things that can happen. I've actually been here when normally they have what they call a launch window. You have a certain time frame based on all the variables when you can launch anything between a time and a time. And they've had some launches that had to go to the second, the actual second. They had 1 second frame to launch or they couldn't go. And they've done it. So to me, it's an amazing accomplishment here and be just observant of it.
It's incredible dynamics. It's all dynamics.
And when the shuttle used to launch, it was such an amazing experience because when you were out here, you could literally feel the ground shake, and you could feel the sensation in the air. It was an experience that unless you've actually done it, you could never describe it or never understand it. But it was a combination of sound, of visual, of all kinds of your different senses, feeling something really special was going on. So the experience to launch was very, very rare. I was very fortunate. I was able to bring a lot of teachers out here to the launches, and then they in turn would go back and share it with the kids in the classroom.
All right. I had a question. As you would kind of expect, you've taught or you've shared in a lot of other schools outside of the U.S., but what would happen if somebody wanted to get you locally there? What would they do?
All you need to do is either call me on the cell phone or email me. And I actually have a website. It's educatemotivate.com. It's one word, E-D-U-C-A-T-E, motivate, M-O-T-I-V-A-T-E, one word.com. Just email me there, or you can get me through Martin, or you can email me at work. And, I will gladly come and do presentations. I have to pay my own way, and I have to take vacation to do it. But I literally do it all over the world for the wonderful feelings that I get from giving them.
That's outstanding, Gabe. Outstanding. All right. Well, any other short questions? Type them in, but we probably need to let Gabe get back to his actually lunchtime over there. Okay, Gabe, again, wanted to say thank you, special thanks for joining and sharing with everybody in the leadership community. I think it was really great to hear from you.
Okay, it's my pleasure. I really thank the opportunity to speak to you, and hopefully you got to share in some of the fun of working at Kennedy Space Center and our space program.
All right. Have a great day over there, Gabe.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Gabe.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Gabe.
You're so welcome.
We're all saying the same thing. Thanks.